Hi guys, welcome to Yesterday's Coffee, the podcast where we chat about fitness, nutrition, and business all over coffee that may or may not have been brewed yesterday. And today we are chatting all about sleep, why you need it, why it's important, how it can potentially impact your goals, whatever your goals happen to be. We've all heard our entire lives that sleep's important and that sleep can impact weight loss and that sleep can impact your health. But I don't know that people really understand the gravity of the importance of sleep.
Yeah, it's more than just being tired and not feeling like working out or stuff like that.
Yeah,
It goes a lot deeper.
It goes a lot deeper. People think that your body just completely shuts off when you sleep, and that's not exactly what happens. Your body does shut down certain parts, but your brain is actually fairly active while you're sleeping.
Well, yeah, one of the biggest components of sleep that's coming out of more modern research is the purification or detoxification of the brain, the trimming away of, the excess neurons that consolidate what you've learned and the meaningful things that you've learned into a more cohesive package so that you've got this refreshed mental state every morning.
It's when your body does all the processing, right? So your brain is a very active organ. Your brain, I think I remember telling you this once, and I haven't fact checked it, so I'm sorry, but there was a podcast that I was listening to that cited that the brain uses 120 grams of carbs every day. So we're not talking about specifically during sleep,
you saying that, yeah.
But just to give you an idea, that's, for some people, that's all of the carbs that they might eat in a day. But that's how metabolically active your brain tissue actually is. And it has to process things. Your brain is multitasking all day long. So when you're sleeping, it's kind of your brain's one chance to organize everything that it had to process all day long.
Yeah. And there's an element to remembering or storing information with sleep. So the idea that you're going to cram for an exam, pull an all-nighter, and just push all this information into your mind, while you can pull it off, it's actually much better to study, sleep. Let your brain actually absorb the information and then be able to recall it in the future.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what you said about detoxifying the brain specifically, because that's another thing that I don't think people think about, is your brain is separate from your body's detoxification system, right? So your liver, which is your main detox organ, is not detoxifying anything that comes out of the brain.
Right.
Your brain is pretty much separate from all of that. So your brain actually has its own detoxification system that more recent research has shown works at a higher rate while you're sleeping.
Yeah. And isn't that in conjunction with the cerebrospinal fluid?
Yeah, it's basically
the term called? I was just reading it.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's the fluid in your brain. It's basically circulating constantly, but it circulates at a quicker rate while you're sleeping.
And the volume of that fluid increases in the brain during sleep.
Yes. I think those two things go hand in hand.
Right.
It's your brain is trying to make a better environment for your brain to actually be able to flush out all the waste products specifically produced in the brain.
Right. It's like if you're cleaning your car, right? You break out all this water, you spray it down.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the brain.
It's kind of, it's just constantly circulating in the brain. And when your brain doesn't have this influx of information that it has to process, it's able to detoxify itself better, meaning overnight. So obviously the brain is doing a lot overnight. Your body's also detoxifying itself overnight. Your body's working to repair and recover overnight, right? So this kind of relates to your muscles and how your body's able to recover for the next day.
Right.
Potentially leading into better muscle gains or, less sore muscles, whatever, relating to training in that aspect.
Right. And one of the biggest contributors of sleep in relation to recovery from a muscle building standpoint and overall growth is growth hormone release. And up to 75% of all the growth hormone your body releases comes in deep sleep.
And it's in that first cycle of deep sleep too.
Being stage 3 deep sleep. And so the more times you go through that cycle of deep sleep, the more releases of growth hormone that you're getting. And so if you start continually cutting that short, then you're creating a major impact on the overall growth hormone that you're going to see through the day.
Yeah. So if you're, waking up at 4:00 in the morning to get your lift in and you're cutting your sleep by 2 or 3 hours just to get your workout in, it might actually be better for you to try to create a better schedule for yourself because, again, you might be cutting your gains short.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way. So if 75% of your growth hormone comes during sleep and you're only getting 2/3 of the sleep you need, that's 25% of your total growth hormone that you've just cut out of your day.
Exactly.
So that has a huge impact, not just from, like we were saying earlier, not just from being tired. Like you're taking one of the most powerful hormones, literally human growth hormone, out of the equation, which has pretty large ramifications.
Which, if your goal is to build muscle, you should already be aware of what growth hormone is.
Yeah.
And so you should understand this topic a little bit better. But overall, what is the recommendation for sleep?
So it varies person to person. I think the average is around like the 7 to 9 range. Some people can do with a little bit less. Some people require a little bit more. The age-old adage of 8 hours per night is a really good sweet spot. Because,
and it is scientifically sound. So these aren't just arbitrary numbers. The majority of research done, time after time has shown that your brain and body functions are on a cycle. We know that your body works on a clock, basically.
Yep.
And that this 7 to 9 hour period seems to be when the body has been recovered enough and the brain has gotten through all the things that it needs to get through while you're sleeping in order for you to be refreshed for the next day.
Right.
So that 7 to 9 hour period is true. And unfortunately, for those people out there who think that they can survive on 3 or 4 hours of sleep indefinitely for the rest of their lives, it's just not true. It's really not. There's a slight variation, but the variation does not drop as low as 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like, you might be okay with 6, maybe, but, I mean, the research doesn't really support that, but it might happen. I get it.
There's definitely some outliers.
There are... But here's the thing, though. You're probably not that person. Like, if I'm just going to be honest, more likely than not, you're not that person. And the people who consistently are like, well, I feel fine. There is actually support for the fact that as sleep deprivation increases, your brain function drops. But there's kind of this point where your awareness of that reduced brain function levels out. So it's like your brain function continues to drop. So things like memory, things like focus, reaction time, all of those brain focused skills get poorer, but you feel okay. You feel fine. So you would claim that everything's cool, but then if you were to go take a reaction time test, you would perform a lot more poorly than you would guess you would perform.
So basically you've been performing so poorly for so long, you've
gotten used to it, basically.
You've forgotten how bad you're performing.
Well, kind of yes and kind of no. It's just like that it's almost like a survival instinct where there's something that happens where your brain is like, okay, well, they're not going to be sleeping, so we want to try and help them feel as best as they can, but the performance isn't there.
Right. I mean, if you're constantly at 80% and you do it long enough that you don't realize that you're at 80%.
Yeah. And so that's not a great thing because even though you can get used to 3-4 hours of sleep, your body and your brain really can't. There's no point at which your brain gets used to cutting its recovery time in half,
right,
or its detoxification in half. So that's really important.
So how does sleep impact fat loss?
So there's a couple different things that are happening. Obviously, we know that recovery is super important. So rest and recovery and the role that it plays on training and fat loss. But there are a couple other things happening. A really big one is hunger hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're sleep deprived, your body is basically kicking into survival mode. It's a stressor on the body. Lack of sleep is a stressor, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. You've got less time to recover, so you're going to require more energy because you're awake for a longer period of time. And so your body's going to signal that we need more energy coming in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's not, yes, that's part of it. And then the other part is that survival mode of your body starting to freak out a little bit of like, okay, why aren't we able to sleep for the full amount of time that we need? Like, is there a danger present?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a stressor on the body, meaning cortisol is elevated. And we've talked before about how cortisol impacts fat loss, right? It decreases fat burning. It increases muscle burning. Sorry, it throws off your blood sugar. Blood sugar fluctuations aren't great when we're trying to lose fat. And then on the other side, we've got your body spiking hunger hormones, asking you to eat more food, but your body is also lowering the hormone that tells you that you're satisfied.
Right.
So
leptin and ghrelin.
Yes. So leptin being the hormone that tells you that you're satisfied, and ghrelin being the one that tells you you're hungry.
Yep.
So your body's basically pumping out all of these hormones telling you that you're hungry, you should eat carbs, and that you're not going to be full no matter how much you eat.
Right.
So obviously that can pose a problem when we're trying to lose fat and we're trying to control our calorie intake. And then on the other side, you've got problems with performance. So even if you can have the willpower to fight all of these cravings, going to the gym and still performing optimally is going to be a lot harder for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you've got elevated cortisol and your blood sugar's out of whack, performance isn't going to be there. You're not going to be as recovered. You're going to be burning off more muscle, more protein breakdown through your workouts. I mean, there's just a whole cascade of effects that follow with that. So, and it's not like it's the end of the world if you miss a night or two of sleep, but this is more of like chronic concerns over time, to where instead of performing at 95, 100%, you're constantly in that 80 to 85%, and it's just going to be that much harder to progress.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this also relates to the scale. So not just talking in broad terms of fat loss over a longer period of time, but the daily fluctuations that you experience. If you have a night or two of poor sleep and you get on the scale and your body weight is a couple pounds up, it's probably related to all of those hormone fluctuations we just talked about, and it's less likely that you've all of a sudden gained 2 pounds.
Right.
So that's something else to keep in mind is, if you're somebody who weighs pretty frequently, and this is just another thing to explain the fluctuations that you might see on the scale.
Right. All those things contribute to body water and any other variables there that are easily going to influence the scale plus or minus 5 pounds in a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So nothing to freak out about in those acute measurements. So sleep's important.
Yeah.
How do we get better sleep? What do we do?
So there are a few different things you can do, but starting with kind of what do I want to call it? Your sleep time routine, I guess, is how I should say.
Yeah,
how I should say that. You want to try to make your sleeping environment as calm and relaxing and ideal for sleep as possible.
And exclusive to sleep.
Yes. So that's why they tell you to try and leave electronics out of the bedroom. Don't work in bed. Don't eat in bed.
Don't watch TV in bed.
I'm probably guilty of all of these things, but I still sleep okay. That's fine. I don't do it that much actually anymore because Kyle tells me that I can only sleep in bed. So you want to keep your sleep environment exclusive to sleep. You also want to keep it dark. You want to keep it cool, and you want to keep it quiet unless you're somebody who needs a little bit more noise or potentially like white noise to sleep. So those are the 3, I think, main things about that sleep environment. Also, having a bedtime routine is really helpful. So kind of setting the stage, signaling to your body and to your brain that it's time to get ready for bed or time to go to bed. A really, really big one that's become more, I guess, well-known in the past few years is your exposure to blue light.
Yeah, so that's what those filters on your computer and phone are doing. And
which I use religiously because it really does affect my sleep. The blue light is basically like false daytime light, right? So your body follows a circadian rhythm, and it does match up with daylight hours. So when you are up late using an electronic device that's emitting this blue light that's similar to sunlight, your body and brain think that you should be awake. Well, so what's happening is your body's continuing to produce more cortisol, which is kind of like your waking hormone, and it's down-regulating melatonin. So your body's not able to produce as much of that sleep time hormone as it should be, which obviously creates a problem when you then shut the laptop and you try to go directly to sleep. Your
just
brain thinks you should be awake, and you don't have enough melatonin to really put your brain to sleep. So always use a yellow light filter, or you can go out and buy some blue blocker glasses to wear in the evening time. Most of your electronics should have some sort of yellow light filter.
I feel like TVs don't, do they?
No, that's a really big frustration to me because our screens have gotten much bigger, and so you have
higher resolution,
higher
wider
resolution,
color range.
yeah. So like you've got all this information coming at you, and if you're somebody who watches TV before bed, that can have a really big impact. So that's what the blue blockers would be good for. The glasses that
I've
you
seen
buy
those.
specifically.
I haven't actually.
I think they're cool.
Have you tried them? Have you seen any?
I haven't tried them, and honestly, I won't because I would have to wear my contacts to use them, which kind of defeats.
Can you not get
the
them
purpose.
With a prescription?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, I've never really looked into it. I would
have to look into it because that would be cool. That would be a cool feature.
I feel like they've got to do that.
Well, so the thing is though that, I guess you could get a prescription on those glasses. I was thinking the other way. I was thinking putting some sort of like,
no, I mean, it'd be a separate
film. Yeah, they'd have to be separate.
They'd have to be separate glasses
because they are yellow. The lenses are yellow.
Right. I mean, you're blocking out blue light, so it would make sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think they're interesting. So check them out, give them a try, or try to limit your exposure to electronics before bed. I know that's not always the easiest situation. Do make sure that any electronic lights, even like small red or blue lights just on electronic devices, are covered in your bedroom before you go to sleep. If you have trouble sleeping, this is kind of where, normally I would say it doesn't matter what time at night that you eat. If, I don't want you to skip a meal just because you think you shouldn't eat past 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever. But if you do have trouble sleeping, it might be worth looking at your meal schedule and trying to push your evening meal a little bit earlier if possible.
Potentially, yeah.
A good window of time is about 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, where that meal has almost been fully digested. So as you're going to sleep, that's just one less thing that your body's going to have to do as you're trying to fall asleep and get into that deep sleep stage. So it's not a huge impact for a lot of people, but if you already have issues or you're more sensitive or you're under chronic stress, that might just be one added thing that's taking away from your ability to get good sleep.
Obviously, stimulant usage is something to look out for too.
Yeah, maybe don't drink your, 3 p.m. coffee, your afternoon pick-me-up. Or
your 6 p.m. pre-workout.
Or that, oh my gosh, yeah, the people that take pre-workout like after work on their way to the gym.
Yeah, well, yeah, they got to have energy to work out, right?
I very much advise against that.
I mean, and some people can do it, so don't get me wrong. Like, if you've got a very fast metabolism for caffeine, you can chew through that and you can sleep just fine. And if that's you, keep doing your thing. But if it's not you, then
maybe reevaluate. Yeah, again, if you're having trouble sleeping or getting deep, restful sleep, take a look at what your whole daily routine looks like, and there might be some slight, small changes you could make to increase your sleep quality. I feel like there was one more. Is there any?
Well, I think that's it as far
meal
as
timing. I guess meal composition is another one. If you are really carb heavy, and we've talked about this before, this goes back to just general meal balance. Mm-hmm. But people who have an issue waking up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep, sometimes it could be related to your last meal being unbalanced or super carb heavy or super calorie heavy, depending on who you are, meaning that your body runs through that blood sugar and your blood sugar tanks, cortisol spikes to pick it back up, and you wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Ideally, you'd rather have a fat, protein-based meal before bed.
Mm-hmm. And you still want to have some carbs, especially ones that are going to be slower digesting.
Right.
So your higher fiber,
slower digesting meal.
Yeah.
And then finally, supplements in regards to sleep. So this is something that we actually do recommend in a few cases, and not just for people that have sleep issues, but promotion of just restfulness in general. So one of my favorite supplements that I've been taking for years is ZMA. And ZMA is a combination of zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6, all packaged up into one nice, neat supplement. Mm-hmm. And it's not something I've ever used for sleep issues. I've honestly never really had sleep issues. But it promotes...
Okay. Lucky.
Well, no, but it promotes restfulness, and it promotes
recovery and detoxification.
Yeah, and these are minerals that most people are deficient in.
So magnesium and zinc even anymore. Magnesium has actually always been one of the biggest deficiencies, but zinc is now starting to to creep
those
onto
two
that
are
list.
Always issues, yeah.
But the reason they package those 3 nutrients together is that they work synergistically. So the 3 of those nutrients work together to get your body into that deep sleep phase. So promotes the deep sleep brainwaves, promotes detoxification, relaxation with the magnesium. So those 3 things aren't necessarily supplements that you would want to purchase separately and take together unless you knew the exact dosage and they were all in the same form. So that's the reason that they're bundled as they are.
Yeah, and there are certain minerals that compete with one another, right? So like calcium is one to avoid when taking with ZMA because the receptor site's the same, so they compete for actual absorption.
Yeah, why they recommend taking it in the evening because one, it's going to promote sleep and relaxation. They also recommend taking it on an empty stomach because it's digested and absorbed better because of the lack of competition with other nutrients. So like you were saying.
Limited receptor sites, so if more of those find their way in, it'll be more effective. And if you've never used ZMA before, some supplements are hit or miss because I've used a number of different brands. Some you can tell, some you can't. If you get a good one, you'll wake up and be like, wow, like I feel really good. And you don't have to be somebody...
Especially if you were deficient before.
Well,
I mean, it's night and day difference.
And you don't have to be somebody that's ever struggled with sleep to feel that difference either.
No, it's just it's a different... It's hard to explain because it's this different like intensity of alertness and being awake and clarity. It's like, you know, you might wake up in the morning and feel ready to get out of bed, but you're still a tiny bit groggy or you don't have that like immediate clarity on waking up. When I take my ZMA regularly, it's like I open my eyes and my brain is like immediately ready to go.
Yeah, it's really nice. I will link a description put a link in the description for the ZMA that we use. If you are interested in checking it out, because that's one of the supplements that I recommend to everybody, just because it's such a great support supplement for restfulness and for making sure that you've got the adequate amounts of zinc and magnesium coming into your diet.
And if you're highly active, I mean, you're running through zinc and magnesium at a faster rate anyway, if you're highly active and if you're under chronic stress. So I guess that really just applies to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great thing to use.
Yeah, so it really does. It can be useful, I think, to anybody. It's not something that you absolutely need, so I will say that.
By no means do you need it.
So, you know, if you don't have any problems with sleep, it's not like you should run out and buy it now. You don't need it. You're fine.
I think most people could use.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could benefit, but it's not one of those ones that I would recommend taking forever for the rest of your life if you're trying to be selective about what you take. A couple other ones. Well, you could take magnesium alone. Magnesium alone will still have a relaxing effect on your body.
If you're gonna do that, just take ZMA.
I agree. But if some people want to try something else, the other thing is I did have a hard time finding a powdered version of ZMA. So for anybody who does not like to take capsules, powdered magnesium might be another good option for you for sleep.
Can you just pull apart the capsule?
That is not recommended. It's not the same thing. It's in a different...
Is that not the powder?
As the calm powder? No, they're different.
No, but like if you're looking for a powdered ZMA, aren't they just packaging powder in a capsule? Or is that not it?
No, it's not the exact same powder. I'm sure it's a different form of the vitamins.
But why?
They recommend not uncapping most capsule vitamins.
So it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
I mean, I don't.
It might be a different form. I don't know. I don't know if it's like going to be bad for you, if it's going to burn your throat, if it's just going to taste bad. I don't know, but I'm not recommending people uncap their capsule vitamins because I've read on many labels not to do that. So I'm just going to say don't. But, so the magnesium only supplement does come powdered if you need it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Or if you have more digestive related issues, sometimes the magnesium powder can be a little bit better. It can also help with sleep, whatever. The last one that I came up with was melatonin. Obviously, we know that that's a natural hormone that your body produces. If you overproduce cortisol, you're really stressed out, or you just have a really bad sleep schedule. Using melatonin for a brief time, I think, could be useful for some people. Some people don't notice any difference. In those people, it's typically because their cortisol levels are so high that even some supplemental melatonin isn't touching them. But melatonin isn't something that I recommend using super long term.
So overall, you'd say that ZMA can be for anybody. Melatonin would be more like the actual sleep issue individuals.
Yeah, melatonin would be what I would recommend for somebody that ZMA didn't help entirely at first.
Yeah, so ZMA first and then melatonin
going
next.
to melatonin. And I would usually recommend using melatonin along with doing a lot of like behavioral work to manage stress. So either doing some breathing exercises or meditation before sleep, that kind of stuff. Because again, the melatonin should be short term. If you take melatonin for too long, it can impact your body's natural production of it.
Yeah, as most things do.
Yeah, so that's just something that you would want to be smart and
cautious of.
Yeah, cautious about. So
anything else you want to add to sleep?
I don't think so. It's important. You need it. You should get good sleep. And there are definitely a lot of ways that we can change your routine to get you better sleep.
Awesome. So, hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. If you've got anything you'd like us to cover in the future, feel free to reach out to myself at HypertroFit.com. And you can find Alexa at therootedrd.com. And we will see you guys again next week.
We'll see you guys next week.